CNCer, Scott here again for CNC Labs. Welcome to version 1, episode 1, whatever you want to call it, of Cottage Country CNC, and you can spell that however you like to spell it. We're looking pretty overcast today. I actually had to delay recording this morning because the rain was coming down so heavy you couldn't hear with all the background noise, I guess. So, anywho, it looks like it has stopped. I'm going to try and get this tutorial, slid in there and done before the rain starts up again, and then we have to delay again. We've been having kind of an internal discussion within the marketing side of things within the company, trying to figure out the best way to cater to all of our audiences out there, because we've got beginner, intermediate, and kind of advanced. And when we do these tutorials, we had a survey recently, and we kind of knew it internally that the videos were running long. Now, I mean, a guitar project is going to run long because it's a guitar. However, we were trying to cover all of the user groups, and that started an internal discussion of, can we do our job better? Can we gear tutorials and videos and content towards specific groups to make it more enjoyable for everybody? So we decided that yes, there was too much content within each video, and how do we address that? So this is going to be the tutorial side of this. Is going to be the demo of our resolution, I guess, or what we're going to try out, which basically we've recorded some of those 5-minute quick hitter videos that are going to talk about the basics for beginners. Starting a file, setting up a document, importing, creating toolpaths, exporting, saving, previews, like all those basic tasks, just to get you guys, the beginners, up to speed, because let's face facts, when you're starting out, you got to learn somewhere. The cool part is, hopefully by removing some of that step-by-stepness from the intermediate and more advanced ones, it's going to make those videos more condensed, a little bit faster, a little bit more enjoyable. And then the beginner people will catch up with some of these quick hitters, and then they'll be able to follow along with some of these other ones a little bit easier. So we think that it's going to work. That's the direction we're going, and hopefully it works. So, let us know in the comments. And hopefully you're happy with what we've decided. And, again, just let us know. Keep it nice, because everybody's learning and we're trying to figure things out. But we're trying to make the best content we can for you guys, because ultimately you guys are the ones who drive all the fun. So as far as projects go, because we are in an up north setting, we figured that we should kind of, try and gear them towards the cottage country side of things. So we've got a bunch of different ones on the list of cottage country projects. The first one is a revisit of one that we kind of did last year. We did last year, but it's in the same theme. So if you haven't checked out that, check out the Connect 4. I'm going to say playlist here or playlist here or here. Whichever one works, wherever the link goes. We are going to do cornhole boards, because we love the idea of outdoor games, and outdoor games are a whole lot of fun, and they're a big part of my life. So we did Connect 4 last year, Connect 5, whatever it was, I can't remember at this point. But we're going to do cornhole. On the surface, I have notes here because there's a couple of key points that I like. When cornhole was brought up, I kind of went, I don't know that I love that idea, because it's not like a typical CNC project. But then I started breaking it down and thinking about it some more, and I went, you know what? It's actually a really great project. One, it's for beginners, it's fantastic. It's fairly basic, fairly straightforward. Two, having like most people are gonna be like, I can do everything. I can make a cornhole board without a CNC. You absolutely can. I have done a couple of them myself. Where the CNC really is a game changer is it's going to allow you to make certain parts almost production line, right? So like if you carve a handle in the side, things like that, you can set up, boom, a whole bunch of them, bang them out, and instead of using a drill and using a jigsaw and then a router, the CNC is going to punch them out for you clean, quick, and precise. There's one. So you can kind of production line certain things. Part two, that's the time saver. Part two, and this is the one that I find really, really cool, because if you start Googling custom cornhole boards, the options are endless, and I see how a lot of other people are doing them. They're using vinyl, they're just painting stuff on. The CNC is going to kick that to a whole different level for if you're trying to sell them, or if you want to make them for yourself ultimately. But from a buying a machine and being able to pay it off, or to make some side cash, or retirement project, whatever you want to call it, whatever area you're in and your use for your machine, if you are looking to sell them, customizing them is, in my opinion, a really good way to not necessarily charge more, but to make the value more, because if it's customized, boom, people automatically want to, they'll like it more. So that's kind of where cornhole came full circle for me, where I went, you know what, outdoor game, you can make some extra cash by customizing them, you can production line them, and that's it for that spiel. So as far as the project goes, it's very basic. Again, the reason off the top of the head I didn't think it was a great CNC project was because, you know, you're cutting your materials with either, you know, a table saw or whatever saw you're using to cut your material down. And that's not really CNC heavy. However, again, those 2 points that I just brought up, the production line and customizing, those are straight CNC awesomeness. So I let my guard down, and mine turned out really great. I'm thrilled with them. There were a few shortcomings on materials. The machine performed flawlessly, and I'm thrilled with it. However, this project did 100% reiterate my absolute despise of plywood. I bought like the nice fancy stuff because I wanted to have a nice finished surface, and it is so, like, it's not even paper thin. I've got my notebook sitting right here. That final veneer is so embarrassingly thin. When I carved my design in and then I filled it in with this product, it's called P-Tech 8400. It's basically like epoxy and wood filler coming together. Epoxy and wood filler? Yeah, because you can color epoxy. So it's the coolest product ever. You can mix a part A and a part B together. You got a short work time. You smash it in there, and then, but when you sand it, it sands like wood filler. So it's not like epoxy in that regard. It's super nice to sand. It leaves a really nice fill to it. Mine's a little bit sloppy because that was, again, one of my issues. But I'm getting sidetracked. Plywood sucks. There's a reason I always say I hate using plywood. I like solid wood because at least if you make a mistake, you got something to kind of go back to. Maybe it's because I'm not that great a woodworker. I don't know. I found that veneer layer, and you'll see when I start carving it, or not when I carve it. Actually, yeah, it's screwed up when I carve too. You'll see when I start getting into that side of the project, because mine are already done at this point, that, man, did I have to think on my feet and make a couple of quick fixes. So we'll get into that. For right now, let's hop over into Vcarve. From a project standpoint, this one's pretty straightforward. If I'm being totally honest, it was sourcing your idea or whatever you want to do. Again, this could be a name, a design, like literally this is like a charcuterie board or basically anything with the CNC. This is like, not to go sidetrack again, my previous life I did 3D renders, and that was one of the things I really did love about that job was you can use them for anything. If I want to model a mouse and show you what it looks like before it gets made because it's a cool prototype, boom, I can do that in 3D and it's done. Everything, it was limitless. I find the same love of the CNC world because the design side of things, it's limitless. It's whatever you can come up with. It's whatever your client's looking for. It's, you know, it is absolutely limited by your abilities and your knowledge base, but you can still turn out really cool stuff even if you're not like a super high-end user. So for me, again, I'm an outdoorsy guy. My family's outdoorsy. We love being up here. We love outdoor games. So I came up with the idea of, you know, where's my mouse? Where'd it go? Right there. There's my mouse. We came up with this idea of, you know, the get outside and explore. And it just so happens that, you know, we love fishing. I think that has become fairly obvious. So we threw in, you know, a little Sasquatch. Because why not have a Sasquatch outside? You're exploring, you might find a Sasquatch, and he might love fishing too. And, you know, there's always the chance that you're going to run into... That is indeed... I might get in trouble for this. I'm not sure if that's... I believe that is a caribou. I don't know if it's a moose. And for our other folks around the world, we have lots of different of these creatures up here in Canada. So I don't want to get yelled at. This is a turkey vulture, though. I know that guy. So we came up with this kind of explore, naturey, outdoorsy, themesy. It's fun. It's whimsical. Again, it's awesome. And it looks like the rain's rolling in because I can hear tippy-tappies on the roof. So if it gets loud, I apologize to whoever has to fix the audio. Really long story short, I did a little research. You know, I've made a couple of myself. We can probably throw in some B-roll of my previous ones. I'll dig that up. They were really nice. The design was much more simple. I did not have my CNC at that point. I did have my CNC, but I was a chicken. Sorry, now I'm going back in antiquities here. I used the CNC just to carve out the hole for the cornhole board, but I didn't use my CNC to engrave the name. I don't know why I didn't. I was a chicken back then. That was silly. I totally should have used it for that, and I didn't. I just, cut out the design and sprayed it in there. Anyway, where was I going? Yes, materials. So I've made a couple of these already, so I had a pretty good understanding of how to put them together. I've made them a few different ways. This is the first time I've actually used full-out plywood like this. The last couple I did, I used recycled fence boards, quite honestly, because I wanted a vintage kind of feel, a more antique-y. This one was straight 5/8 plywood. I used 1x4 solid pine for the sides and the frames and the legs, and that was about it. So from a material standpoint, I apologize to the cornhole aficionados out there. This is not like to spec. They're pretty close. They're 2 feet by 4 feet. When you roll the legs out, it's no more than 12 inches at the highest point, which is according to the rules. The hole is the right size for the beanbags. I can probably include that, but I think you guys can probably figure that one out. But that's about it. Chop my wood down. I did that back at home, but you could do that at your shop. You could use your CNC to chop it down if you really don't have a saw. So that was about it. We cut it all down to size. I'll probably just leave this for the voiceover. You're going to have to cut that part out. Sorry, guys. So, here we are. We came up with our idea of what we wanted. Ours was an outdoorsy theme. I love the design. I think it looks lovely. Do I have it previewed? No, I had it previewed. That's all right. We can just do preview all toolpaths. Now, it's obviously quite tricky to see it here. But there it is, it's looking pretty good. I purposely left a gap all the way around. I just felt that it helped with the design. There's the words, there's the turkey vulture, there's my compass, which I think is a wicked little target helper, and that's going to get cut out and punched out. Realistically, it was just a matter of now. This is... depending on who's doing it, you can create your own graphics. You can go online and find some freebies because there is a ton of great websites out there. Or you can find, if you've already got a paid subscription somewhere, dive in, grab your graphics, your vectors, and go to town. You also have the option, we've done this in previous tutorials, and I cover this in one of the quick hitters, of how to trace your bitmap, which is there. You can bring in an image and go that way. Ultimately, I found some vectors online that served my purpose, so I was able to go straight vectors. Boom, happy. That's about it. So we imported our vectors over here. Boom, boom, boom. Wherever they came from. That's great. And then when they come in, typically speaking, just to keep it on... Oh, I'm going to probably eat my words right here. Typically speaking, my process is to join everything first, right? So you select whatever you import. I join it. Boom, good, I did that one. You hit join, so everything's connected. That's great. No little individual vectors. After that, I will typically go to the fit to curve. I did this one already. And these are, sometimes I'll switch. I typically will use actually Bezier curves. I find them a little bit more enjoyable to work with coming from a graphic background. Circular arcs are cool, but they're almost like, they're more simple, but they're also less customizable, I find. I just don't like them as much, but that's a personal preference thing. Tolerance pretty tight. Keep sharp corners in case they're there. Replace selected vectors, and then you can preview it. Bink. Oh, so I didn't do this one as heavy as I thought I did. But either way, I do that to all of my vectors. I should have done that to all of my vectors. Whether or not I did, I can't promise, because I bet you if I go to the tree, it's probably not as nice. After I've done those two steps, I will typically group things if I can, just to make my life easier, because at some point I messed with the tree, and you can see I lost my group on it. So there's all these little deselected parts that should be a part of it. It just makes it easier for selection purposes. That's about it. So that was both sides. I created the hole for, hold on, let's go in order. The top hole. So that was, again, it's a 6-inch diameter, I believe, was the official specs. So we drew a circle. There we go. So this is a tiled project. If you haven't done a tiled project, they can feel fairly daunting right off the bat, but I promise you they are not as bad as you think. It's just literally a slide and an offset. The big thing I found very helpful when I started doing them was to have a guide. So if you just have your material on your wasteboard and you try and slide it manually, and you can probably do pretty good. But if you're trying to really line stuff up, it can get a little tricky. I typically will have a known square surface. Let's not even get into that. Yes, I did it properly this time. I'll have a known, I'll use my machine, carve my line. There's my known straight lines to my machine. And I will screw a piece of material down that I can butt my actual carved piece of material against. Again, I'll talk about this in the with some voiceover in the actual carving. But that just means that whatever I slide it, I know that whatever it's pushed against, it will slide against that, and it's one less thing to have to worry about. Now all I'll have to worry about is the offset that I'm sliding by. In this particular case, because these are 4 feet long, we hit tile toolpaths. We are feeding through the Y because we're sliding lengthwise. You can see that I have my tile height as 24 inches, so 24 and 24, well within the realm of a 30 by 30 machine's abilities. You can monkey around with the overlap. In my particular case, you can see here that I purposely put that 24 inch on there. There's nothing to overlap. There's no reason to have an overlap because I'm not trying to blend two things together. It's literally basically just two separate carves. You could set it up that way, but then it's a little bit more work. You can see that you can switch between tile 1 and tile 2 over here, and it will show you what's happening. You can draw the toolpaths on the original position for visualization. This is super helpful, I find, because if it draws it, basically if you don't have this clicked on, it's going to draw it in the bottom 24 and the bottom 24 instead of the bottom 24 and the top 24. So you're going to have your top design carved over top of your bottom one in the visualizer, and it's going to be very confusing. So by clicking that on, it will carve it here and carve it here, pretend, but when you go to carve it, it will move it down. Hopefully that was clear. Obviously, if you're using material and sliding it this way, you can change that, and then you can hide the tiling manager. So if you ever need to find that guy, it will be over in your toolpath operations, and it will be right there. And you can just, if this guy's not pinned, if this guy's not pinned, you can pin it, and then we go. So top hole, that's what it was. The rest is pretty basic, pretty straightforward stuff. So no V-bits on this one. This is straight end mills. In my head, when I was designing this, I knew I wanted to go kind of as simple as I could on the design because I figured that if you haven't done a tiling project before, that it might be a little bit daunting. So I didn't want it to be anything overwhelming with craziness. So I kept end mills, kept them simple. But I also knew that the whole reason why I was excited about making a custom cornhole board with a LongMill with the CNC is because I wanted to carve down and I wanted to use this product. I don't have it handy. I have a board that's got residue left over on it that's holding up my light, and it's over there. And I'm so tucked in here. We'll just pull up the product for it. I don't know if we're allowed to, if we should. It's a really good product though. I like it. It's expensive. So that's where I'm going with this is when I set my toolpaths on this originally, and you'll see this when I'm carving, I went way deeper than I should have. I think I started at a 16th, and even that was like, holy jump. And I realized after I started carving, way too deep. I think I scaled it back to a 64th. Let's go find out. It's a little bit more than a 64th, if my math is correct. 1 divided by 64 is 1/5. Yeah, so we're in between. This was, again, experimentation. I didn't actually do a test run on anything, which is crazy for me. So you'll see when I'm carving that I stop it a number of times and I go back in here and then I change the depth and then I start it back up again. So there was some variation in the get outside trees that looks a little bit funky. The reason I was so concerned about the depth was because this stuff is expensive. You get 2 pouches this big and it's like $50. The end result is beautiful and I love it, but it's expensive. So I was trying to get away with, oh man, is that rain? Here comes the rain. I was trying to get this as thinly carved as I could because it's just cornhole boards. It doesn't need to be a great big thick deep carve to keep it in there. For maybe a charcuterie board that's going to take, like knife work or something, I would probably go a little bit more, but this is going to be in there. It didn't need to be thick. So as you can see, for all of my toolpaths, I kept these as thin as I possibly could. It took me a couple trials to dial it in. I also found out that, again, my despise of plywood came in as a factor because, man, it was not cooperative with me with all the factors. I say it every time. I don't know that I ever want to use plywood again for a finished product. If we're making even the step stool. Yeah, if we're carving into it and engraving, I don't think I'm ever going to use plywood again. I will go solid wood, and I will deal with it, because engraving plywood sucks. Because as soon as you go to sand something that you fill it with, sorry, not engraving it, but sanding it sucks. And sanding it sucks because that veneer is so thin. I'm getting sidetracked. For everything on here, I used an 1/8 and a 1/16 down cut. I used an 1/8 to do the clearing pass, and I used a 1/16 to clean everything up. It didn't take too long. It was pretty quick. If you're not familiar with how to do this, I mean, again, we've talked about Toolpaths and the quick hitters, but this one's a little bit different because we are using 2. So you just select whatever you want. In this case, I'm using a pocket toolpath because I want to clear it all out. I don't want to profile. I don't want to go around the edge. I want to clear it all out. So you'd hit pocket and it's already in there. So I'm just going to remove the 16th one just so you guys can see what happens. So you'd say you're going to use an 1/8, and then you can go in and you can say, hey, I actually want to use a 16th too, and you can hit select, and you'll see it adds it to your list. You can change the order that you want to go in, but that would be silly. And then when it goes to create it, it will just create a clearing pass for the 1/8 and a not clearing pass, which would be kind of like the final pass for the 16th. So that's what that will look like. Anywho, feeds and speeds. What did I do? Probably nothing crazy. 175. I kept it pretty conservative. 1/4 inch, yeah, because it was going so thin. The depth didn't even matter. And then the same thing for the 16th. I ran it a little more conservative just because that bit can be a little bit finicky, and I didn't feel like snapping any of them. So that was that. I ramped my plunge moves. Again, when you create 2 paths with two bits within one pass, when you hit calculate, it's going to name it whatever, and it will automatically add that clear in there, which is lovely. So you can see, same thing for the bottom scene as the top scene. There is my bottom scene. It's the exact same, all the same stats. I can either include those, or you guys can just kind of run with it and use what I have, because we're going to give you the files. That's lovely. And I mean, you can create the exact same one. You can take some and leave some. You can do whatever you want. But that really and truly is about the length of the project. It was pretty simple, and we did that on purpose because, again, that tile can be a little tricky. I don't think there's much more for the tutorial side of this, right? And I think I did that on purpose because, one, I'm trying to cut these things down, and I'm not showing every single step. I'm just going through my general process. And 2, it's a pretty simple, straightforward project. I mean, there's a lot of back end where you're cutting with your table saw and you're sanding, and you're getting all your materials and you're drilling holes. But other than that, this side of things is pretty straightforward. I kept it as thin as I could to fill it with that P-Tech. It ran the clearing pass. It ran the finish pass. I saved my tool paths. I mean, that's a basic one too, but there's nothing crazy. These ones are, so obviously you cannot save the same because they're 2 different bits. So if you're trying to do that, you cannot. And obviously you couldn't do the 2 clears because there's a top and a bottom. So you have to do this one path at a time. It's not a huge deal. They're not very long to run. Let's select them all and go into here. I guess that's maybe a new one. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it can show you your tool path calculation, your summaries, and it'll show you your time. So yeah, about an hour, but I think I sped everything up in G-Sender, especially the clearing passes, because I was taking off so little material. It was pretty easy to say, hey, let's bump it up. I think I did 120 or 130, but I think that's about it. This is the culmination of the whole kind of idea behind this, is to shorten these up and to make them easier to digest, more enjoyable, easier to record, which is a 0 factor, but is a little bit nicer for me. Is it me, or did it just get darker out? Oh, am I going to get yelled at if I brighten this up? Oh, look at, there I am. Uh-oh. Okay, how long in is this? This is 26 minutes in. I apologize. I made it a little bit brighter. This beauty of not editing my own videos anymore. Again, I think I can have more to say in the voiceover than I do here, because this was straightforward. I mean, it was just a matter of bringing in your vectors, arranging them how you want, adding toolpaths to them. I, again, used pockets for everything because I was pocketing everything out. Oh, I apologize. I didn't pocket everything. That's right. The hole was a profile. Here, I'll show you just so you believe me. I used a profile because I just wanted to cut it out. I did have inside set. I'm sorry, I forgot. I had tabs in place, and there's 4 of them. It doesn't matter where they go. I just use 4 to keep it from punching out. There's my length on them. They're relatively small. They, you could make them a little bit more narrow, but I just gave them a when it was done and it popped right out, but it held them in place strong enough to be good. And again, naming convention. Yeah, tutorial's pretty much wrapped up on this. This is what we are looking for. Let's condense them. And the rain's coming anyway, so hopefully it's not too obnoxiously loud in my mic. That's about it. I'll have more to say in the voiceover. We used a Craig jig to attach the frame to the back of the plywood because I didn't want to see screw holes on top. If you don't care, go through the top. That's it for tutorial. We're going to hop outside to, well, I mean, I've already recorded this like 2 days ago because I had to fight with the weather. So I was smart enough to plan and I did the project first. So, tutorial's done. I hope you found it helpful. Again, comment. Let us know what you're thinking. Let us know what you're feeling because we put that survey out there to get your feels. Let us know how you're feeling about this. While you're there, if you like what we're doing, please like and subscribe everything. We're going to hop over onto the Carve side of things. I'll have some more to say there, and let's get rocking. Alrighty, folks. So this is the part where I'm going to unclamp my piece of material from the waste board, and I am going to slide it down. I'm going to offset it. Before we talk about the slide and what I did there, you'll notice on the left side, and I may have alluded to this in the tutorial, that I've got some pieces. I've got a piece of wood on that left side that is actually screwed right down to my waste board, and I use that as my guide. So that piece of wood, which I'm currently blocking, is there so that when I slide this piece of wood forward or down, whatever you want to call it, I can't change the angle of the piece of wood, or it's not going to do something weird. So right here, you'll see me pull it forward. I blow out the sawdust to make sure there's nothing that's going to get in the way. And then I will continue to slide the board all the way down, and I'm using that as a guide. Before I set this all up, so I had that piece screwed in on the left, and then I marked up from my bottom left, so my 0, 0, up 24 inches. That's halfway on what the project was. That number can change with whatever your project is, but there's a mark on the actual piece of wood on the left and the right side at my offset distance, and there's also a mark on that guide on the left hand side that I was talking about just to kind of give me a double check reference, so that I make sure I'm offsetting by the correct amount. On a project like this where there is no overlapping carving, it's pretty simple. If you're off by a millimeter, nobody's gonna know. If you're doing a project where there is like a consistent graphic, or it's a sign and letters have to meet up, then your accuracy is the trickiest part of this process, because if you're too short or too long in your slide, you will see that in the result. Same thing without having the guide. You don't have to have the guide there, but for me, it just kind of says, it's kind of like a fail-safe. If I slide along this, then it should work out where my board doesn't move. Now, as we've learned in the past with some of the projects I've done, it's not always, things don't always work out as nicely as I'd like them to. However, this has worked for me a number of times. That guide in place, the offset distance has turned out some pretty cool signs. So that's about it. The slide is not as daunting as people think it is. It's just a matter of a little bit of foresight to make sure that you are indeed lined up and your offset's the correct distance, and then your 0, 0 is the same as it was before. You just have a piece of board hanging off. So we're going to finish time-lapsing through this, and you will see how I go about doing the top half of the sign. And you'll see how I go about finishing off the top half of the cornhole boards. Alrighty folks, that finishes up this project. We, hope you found it helpful and handy and you enjoyed some of the beautiful scenery that we got to show you this time around. Make sure that you're liked and subscribed and you hit the notification bell and the ringy dingies and all the thingies. I got a couple of kids that are trash talking me that need some whooping on the cornhole field, pitch, whatever you want to call it, but I'm going to go show them who's the boss, just like we did back with, Connect 4 last summer. So we hope you liked it. We'll see you on the next episode of Cottage Country CNC. Is that it? Yes. That is it for that little intro. Now, next note. Oh, cool. We get to see a boat go. Where's he going? Where'd he go? Ready, right there. It's a beautiful part to be up here. Okay, so I just want to make sure that my screen capture software is actually recording. Are you actually recording? Okay, good. We've had issues, and I'm now all paranoid about that. Sorry, there's a massive deer fly right there, and I do not want to get bit because I swell up like a balloon when I do. So if I duck and cover, it's because I'm a chicken for insects. Please tell me you're going to cut that out, Louie, because the last time you threatened to leave a burp in there, and I did not appreciate it. Paulo won't do that to me. He's nice. So